A lot of startups fail. Even just trying to raise capital as a LGBTQ founder, like less than 2% or less than 1% of VC dollars go to LGBTQ founders. Yet we create more successful businesses.
Welcome to Living Not So Fabulously. If you are an entrepreneur or want to be an entrepreneur, like we are, you're oftentimes attracted to these stories, these success stories. Many times we see them in social media. You know, these are the individuals who are sitting on the beach, working 20 minutes a day, saying that they're making 7 figures in their business.
They've got fancy cars and private jets that they actually don't own, but whatever.
Right. We're attracted to these kinds of stories, but very rarely do we see what's behind the curtain, right? And sometimes what's behind the curtain is the fact that this person has a 7-figure business, they're making $1 million, but they have to spend $900,000 in Facebook ads to make that $1 million. So we're really seeing somebody's chapter 30 when many of us are in our chapter 1, or maybe we haven't even started writing our own book yet.
And today's guest is in the middle of writing their book. We're joined today by Motivo Scar Care founder and CEO Jadis Montijo. Motivo isn't Jadis's first stint in entrepreneurship, though. In fact, they started out as a chief strategy officer and second employee at the Kind Pen, which was a CBD vape company. And that story didn't necessarily go the way they had planned.
No, and this interview today focuses on this idea of failing forward, how trials and tribulations in business can set us up for the success that we really want.
So let's hear Jadis' story. Welcome to the show, Jadis. We're excited to have you.
Thank you for having me.
So we definitely want to dive into Motivo Scar Care and talk about your current company. But as with most entrepreneurs, we've had several lives, and you've had several lives yourself. So do you mind diving into a little bit about your first endeavor in entrepreneurship?
My first venture in entrepreneurship was with the Kind Pen. In the beginning, it was definitely all-encompassing. We started just shipping products out of garage, and when I left in 2020, we were in a 6,000 square foot warehouse.
Wow.
Yeah, so but that was a lot of long, steady, organic growth, and the internet and social media is much different today than what it was back then when we were building a business. But yeah, I mean, we started out like with an initial like $10,000 investment, and when I left, we were doing around like $12 million in revenue.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. But then you faced some headwinds, obviously, because otherwise you probably would still be sticking with it.
Yeah.
What happened there?
Yeah. So during my time there, I started my personal transition from female to male, which that experience with top surgery led me to create the company Motivo Scar Care. But we at Kind Pen, we were on the path to be acquired. So going through that whole process and the due diligence process, you know, I was anticipating a successful acquisition and exit, but that unfortunately didn't happen.
And if you don't mind me asking, what were you anticipating yourself getting in that acquisition?
Over $1 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at that time and at that age, to me, that was a lot of money, and a lot of money that would have really helped me start Motivo.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I think not having that money and starting Motivo anyway has like really shaped me into a different person, and helped me learn a lot along the way.
So why did the Kind Pen not necessarily work out as you'd hoped?
So we went through a really long due diligence process, and a lot of that was because in the beginning of Kind Pen, Anthony and I didn't really know what we were doing. Like, we never started a business before, so we were just kind of doing whatever we could and what seemed right at the time. So during the due diligence process, 6 years later, there's a lot of cleaning up that we had to do, which took a long time. And in the middle of that, some really bad industry news came out when we were really close to closing, actually. So bad industry news came out. People were dying from vaporizers. There was that popcorn lung, and we made those products for people to smoke out of.
Yeah.
So the company that was going to acquire us, they ended up pulling out of the deal.
Backed out.
Yeah.
So then what was the state of your personal finances at that time?
in shambles.
no.
So what did that mean
Yeah,
for you then when that
yeah.
fell through?
I mean, it meant a lot of hiding under my sheets and trying to collect myself mentally. But we had to go back at it. At the end of the day, whether the acquisition went through or not, the business still had to keep running. Which I feel like, even looking back, like we spent so much time with the anticipation of that acquisition being successful that we really stopped even focusing on growing the company at that point.
Oh, wow.
We're just like, what do we have to do to get this company like into the acquirer's hands?
Yeah.
So we weren't really working on the business. So we really had to just come back to the drawing board. And like, especially now, not only were we not working on the business for so many months, but that business had such bad news surrounding it. We were like, what do we do? Like, how do we keep
Right.
this moving forward? Yeah. So we had to figure that out.
Yeah, so it's two sides that are scary, both your personal side for your finances as well
Yeah.
as the business financial side.
Yeah, of course.
That is really scary.
Yeah. I mean, when I was expecting us to be acquired, I was out having a really good time, not thinking that things would fall through and spending money and enjoying myself. And, I learned a hard lesson.
The answer probably seems pretty obvious, but if you had to do that over again, what would you do differently personally?
I would have definitely financially prepared myself a lot more. And I learned that, nothing's guaranteed. And that's why you need to be prepared financially, personally. Like, as much as you want your business to have that successful exit and you want it to be successful, there are so many variables that can really make it not happen and get to that point.
Right.
So, yeah, like having a plan B essentially, or making sure that while you're building your business, that you're also like setting yourself up personally within your finances in case of failure.
And do you have like 2 or 3 recommendations there that you would suggest to build yourself up personally?
Definitely emergency savings accounts, and investing outside of the industry that you're in. It's like, to my point with the cannabis industry at that time when that bad news came out, like, we had all of our eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
So I think it's important, as much as you are betting on yourself, bet against yourself too.
Do you think that maybe there's a problem with your personal finances intermingling too much with your business finances? Were you keeping that separate, or what was the story with that?
I didn't have that like financial education from school or from family to really understand like the importance of like personal finances and how to maintain them or grow them. So I mean, I was just living day to day, really. But like at the time, like I was making good money, so like, but I was also like really, really, really enjoying that money.
Right.
Versus like saving and planning for the future.
What would you suggest like a startup employee or a new entrepreneur look out for with their finances so they don't follow the same path?
I definitely think that like, while you are working so hard and building this company, you do have to find a way to grow your business, but also take care of yourself, because the success of your business is not guaranteed. And then what are you going to have if things don't go as planned? I moved out of my condo that I enjoyed while I was living at KindPen back to my parents' basement to start Motivo. And that was very humbling to say the least. Like, I didn't even want to date anyone I'm like, because what am I going to say? Like, get into my BMW, I'm going to take in my parents' basement. Like, like, so there was a lot of like lifestyle changes that I had to make that really, at the time was like gut wrenching and not something that I was used to. Like, I was used to just like making money fast and spending it fast and just having what I wanted, to like having to, live in my parents' basement and like talk about like, like past traumas and like that was a very, very, very weird, hard time. And I'm glad I'm out of it, but it was something that was necessary to. I had to take a step backwards to take the step forward, and get back to the place that I'm in now.
Right.
One of the, or I actually, I think I heard two things there. I'm going to just kind of summarize this. I think that you talked about living life large, and a lot of people do that. So I would think maybe the first one is living below your means, no matter what your
Yeah,
means are, as you're growing your business, right?
absolutely.
And then the second one is being really conscious, and we can't be conscious unless we know the numbers, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
conscious means that we have to pay attention to what is actually happening when we make the decisions with our personal finances or our business finances.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, like, even from a business perspective, with KindPen, in the beginning, like, I mean, Anthony and I, we didn't know anything about business. We didn't know, like, that you had to understand certain numbers and do certain things. And that is kind of what I want to say, like, made our due diligence process last so long the first time. And if we had certain things buttoned up in the beginning, the company would have been their company when that bad news came out, not ours still. So, like, if we did things right the first time, in the beginning, we would have probably been successful with that first acquisition.
Are there
Um,
resources for folks to know how to do it right the first time? Is there like a program or
I mean, there's definitely
class?
like accelerator programs. I didn't go to college. I just kind of, started the entrepreneurial experience right away. But I would say mentoring is huge for me. Like, I do have people on my team that I trust to do the things that they're doing. We have vendors that we really trust to do the things that they're doing. But I still want to, like, bounce those things off of people who have more experience than myself and some of my team members and vendors. So I think, like, finding a mentor, in the beginning of starting a business, I think would be like I don't know, my number one suggestion.
Right, that's great advice.
Awesome.
Thank you, Jadis. Please hold that thought. We're going to cut away to a quick break here. Welcome back to Living Not So Fabulously. We're going to resume our interview with Jadis. So I want to kind of start tacking to Motivo Scar Company, but before we do that, it almost seems like you're experienced at like failing forward. When you hear a comment like that, how do you feel? How does it make you feel?
I mean, it makes me feel like, I learned a lot that I can take now and do the right things, with going into this new venture. And I feel more prepared, even though there's no, like, industry crossover between what I did and what I'm doing now. But a lot of the failures that I had, at my time during KindPen they molded me and shaped me into who I am and gave me made me more prepared, for Motivo.
Nice. I love that. So what's the elevator pitch for Motivo Scar Care?
So, Motivo Scar Care creates inclusive and performance-proof scar care products that help diminish the appearance of old or new scars.
Wow.
So
And much needed.
I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
applicable to almost everyone, right? Almost everyone we know
Yeah.
has some sort of scar that is showing or not showing on a regular basis and wants to have it covered up, right?
Yeah. Over 50% of Americans have at least one visible scar on their body.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of people who have scars have either gotten them from some type of traumatic situation or a reason that they didn't want them. So, I mean, our hope with Motivo Scar Care is that if we can kind of help, you diminish the appearance of that scar, get rid of it, that you can kind of start to move past whatever trauma came along, with how you got that scar.
Gotcha. So you're in the healthcare space. What are you seeing on the horizons? What's new and hot that maybe our Yahoo Finance investors might want to tap into?
So, actually, what we are trying to do differently with Motivo Scar Care is fill the white space of scar care within the beauty industry. Because I think that scars really impact how people internalize their beauty and how they feel about themselves. So I don't think that I would be walking to the first aid aisle, to look for scar care. I'd go to, like, a skincare aisle. So what we really want to do is bring this into the beauty industry, where people are really more like appearance conscious, shoppers and people overall.
Yeah, I've never really thought of the blending of the two together, but now that you articulate it, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, medical grade, scientifically formulated products to help diminish the appearance of scars in the beauty industry. I mean, it makes more sense than, I mean, if I'm going to first date, I'm looking for like active wound, you know,
Right.
versus like post wound care. Like, how do we figure that out?
So, what was the motivation then? If you had this experience, and obviously it was enjoyable experience, I think, for the most part,
Yeah.
but then having to move back into your parents' basement.
Would you like to move into your in-laws' basement?
No.
I highly don't recommend.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What was it that said, I am going to do this again, right? I'm going to take this risk. I am going to try this
Where'd you get that
again.
courage?
Instead of saying, okay, now I guess I learned my lesson. Now I'm going to go get my W-2 and try to climb the ranks that way to make my money.
I've never been a person to like be able to just follow rules and do the whole, I don't know. I've always felt like I was meant to do so much more, and like I have a meaning within my life. And I feel like I've been two different people in this lifetime. You know, I've lived majority of my life growing up in early adult years as a female. And then always knowing that like I wanted to transition since kindergarten. And once I did that and I went through that process and my experience with top surgery, and, you know, I knew that there was something here with this, there was a big gap in this market and a real need for more innovation on the products that existed. And I don't know, it was something, it would wake me up out of my sleep. You know what I mean? A lot of the ideas that I have had with Motivo that we've brought to life were like me waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, like, oh my God, like writing it down in my notes, and just, there's just a push. Cause it's not fun.
Right.
Yeah.
They're fun, right? Obviously, they're fun aspects, right? Especially
But it's hard work.
when you see the progress and the excitement, and your product rolls out, and people are buying your product and all that.
Yeah.
You bring it. It's always, entrepreneurship is always an uphill battle with someone, whether it's yourself or a customer or a potential acquisition. There's always some sort of battle on the horizon. So you definitely have to prepare for that.
Yeah, you have to want this, and the want needs to be more than the monetary success that you'll get or may get at the end of it, because you very well likely probably won't get that. A lot of startups fail, especially like, I mean, even just trying to raise capital as a LGBTQ founder, like less than 2% or less than 1% of VC dollars go to LGBTQ founders.
Right.
Yet we create more successful businesses. So there is that, I don't know where.
Logic
gap.
Why the gap?
That brings up a good question. How can LGBTQ plus consumers, the community, support other LGBTQ plus businesses more than maybe we already do?
I feel like doing your research and being mindful of where you spend your money, and the communities that you surround yourself with. And I think, I just being more conscious of how you shop.
Yeah.
And that supports like not only LGBTQ, but minority founders as well. And just as a whole, like small business owners, which make up a lot of businesses in the USA. I mean, majority of them are small business owners, and, you know, could be minority, could be woman, could be LGBTQ. So just knowing who you're shopping with really makes a difference.
So rapid fire here. What are 3 small business hot tips that you might be able to share with the entrepreneurs who are listening or watching, that want to learn from you?
Definitely get a mentor. That is a more than likely free resource that can help you with multiple aspects of your business depending on the person's expertise. I think one of the first real people I brought onto this company was a CFO. I think especially in CPG, if you don't know your numbers, you can really go down quickly. And then just really try to take a step back from working in the business, and also like, because your personal brand means so much, especially like to the point that we made about people realizing who they shop with. You know, putting yourself out there, giving yourself a personal brand that also ties into the brand that you're building, I think will really go a long way.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that last point because we oftentimes see that entrepreneurs hide themselves behind their business.
I wish I could all the time.
And we live in a world where people really want to be invested in the people that they see doing good things, right? And so if we are doing good work with our and we can do good work with our business, then people will invest in not just the business itself, but they're also investing in us and our dreams and our passions and our mission.
Absolutely. I mean, do you want to, you know, shop with a faceless corporation, or do you want to support, you know, your neighbor, your friend, someone you resonate with, and someone who you can emotionally connect with, and that you just overall think is a good person? I mean, that to me, at the end of the day, like, I don't care what you do, what's best for your household is what it is, as long as just be a good person. That's all.
That's what it all comes down to.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to ask you to take a step back and as our last question here. And with all your hard-earned success, what would you say is the one big takeaway that you've learned? Whether it's applicable to finance, business, or just life in general.
To be yourself. If I didn't take the time to step back and authentically, like, you know, go through my transition to become myself, Motivo wouldn't be a thing. Maybe it would be a thing that someone else created, but it's taking the time to be myself and learn myself, and it really put me on my path. And I think that as not fun as owning a business and building a brand can be sometimes, it makes it so much more worthwhile.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's so inspirational.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate you.
I love that interview with Jadis. Jadis shared so much with us, especially around this idea of failing forward. And I think it's important for us to remember that. I mean, we've had our own experiences of not being able to get the success that we want when we want it. And that's always this learning cycle that we have to go through. And as you have shared with me so many times, it's not failing, we're learning. And one of the ways that Jadis shares that we can really learn is by having a mentor. I also really appreciate this, that your mentor doesn't need to cover your whole business. Sometimes it's best to have multiple mentors, one that can help you with one side of your business and one that can help you with another. I think that really can help charge your success.
Yeah, I definitely love that. Two other suggestions that we would add is, one, try to avoid chasing all the disco balls, especially because of social media. We can see somebody blowing up with a particular strategy or doing really well on another social media platform, and we think that we have to try those things ourselves. Find what works for you and lean into that until you can prove that it doesn't work for you, and then maybe at that point tag. The other suggestion that we would have is build one bridge at a time. Probably also because of social media, so many of us tried to build multiple income streams simultaneously, and that rarely ends up being a recipe for success. Build one bridge at a time, get successful at that, get it monetized, and then maybe start to build other income streams.
Can that bridge be a catwalk?
It certainly can, sir. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Living Not So Fabulously. Don't forget to join us every Wednesday at noon Eastern Time on yahoofinance.com, your favorite podcast player, and YouTube.
Remember to click that notification button, like and share, and until next time, stay fabulous.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.